I'm going to show you how to set up the electronics so that you can knit a pattern. I turn the electronics on and I get this program, meaning that I need to program it. There's no patterns within the machine right now. If you don't have that, you can get there by pressing this triple arrow button. I do want to program, so the enter, ENT here, is my answer to yes for any questions that the machine asks. So I want to program. Do I want to erase? I don't want to erase because I have programs in there already, so I'm going to press the no button. Cast on. It wants to know what cast on method I want. I'm going to press enter again. It wants to know, is that all the stitch patterns that you have? That's why it's blinking all stitch patterns, and it doesn't put a question mark, but it's asking because it's blinking. And I have to say, no, that's not all my stitch patterns. So all we've put in is the cast on right now. The next thing I want to do is single bed knitting, which is stitch pattern 100. And you can see that in your book. I've got 100 in there. I'm going to press enter again. It wants to know if I want to test that. No. All stitch patterns? No. Stitch pattern B, I actually loaded something from the PC. And you do that using Creation 6. You'll press this blank button and the 0, and it'll allow you to download a pattern. I've already done that. We'll look at that at another time. So I'm going to say yes, I want that PC pattern. Do I want to alter it? No. The knitting technique that I want to do for that specific pattern is, again, a single bed knitting, but it's Fair Isle, 2-color. So I'm going to press 176, press enter. It wants to know if I want to enlarge that. No. Is that all the stitch patterns? No, I have one more to put in for this cap that I'm making. Stitch pattern C, I want it 100 again, and press enter. So what I've done is I've put in a cast on of 1, I've put in stitch pattern A, which is 100, single bed knitting, 1 color. Then I put in a PC pattern, which happens to be a 2-color Fair Isle. So I put in the stitch method for that would be 176. And the last thing I did was put in another stitch pattern, which is C, and did the same thing I did for A, and that's 100. Now, is that all the stitch patterns I have? Yes. Do I want to use form for this? No. For this particular pattern, I'm working from 80 to 80 for a total of 160 stitches. So the left needles, I want it to go to -80. The right needle, I want it to go to +80. If I wanted to change that, this is where I go ahead and enter what I want to change it to. For instance, 80. Now it's going to start the cast on. When the electronics needs to align, I'm going to set the front lock with this white arrow right here, and I'm going to put it at the very end. Let me point it with the bodkin, the very end of this channel. So this is where the first needle sits, right here, and this is the channel for it. I'm going to line that up right there, and on the machine I'm going to press enter. Now my electronics is saying to put it in the start position. I'm going to press enter. It wants to know you're going to start the cast on. So right now it's blinking cast on. Yes, I want to start the cast on, so I'm going to press enter. It tells me to put the front lock. Notice that the 3 bars at the bottom tell me front. If it wanted to do the back, those bars would be on the top. It says front lock SX. So I move my front lock to SX, press enter. It tells me to put the back lock at GX. Put it at GX. See how those lines are at the top now? That means back bed. And now it wants me to go to the right with an empty machine. But I have to do one more thing first. To use electronics, I have to use the pushers. I have not put any pushers into work. Since I'm doing -80 to an 80, I want to bring those exact pushers into work. Okay, so now I have -80 pushers all the way to plus 80 pushers so that the electronics will be able to select. So I want to go right with no yarn. It says right empty. Go all the way to the right. And now what it has done is moved all my needles that had pushers out of in work and put them into knitting. The machine is now telling me, it's now saying the racking handle, it wants to go to the top. This 0 with a little bar means racking handle to the top. Now you could do it either direction, but I like to go counterclockwise. Press enter. It's asking me, did the needles set up on the bed? It's blinking ND. And again, the bars are at the bottom, so I know it's asking about the front bed. I do. The needles, if you see the pushers, is put it into 1x1 rib, which is the stitch cast on pattern number 1. I'm going to press enter again. Now it wants me to go empty again. Go right empty. It's asking about the needles in the back. Well, I didn't put any needles into work before I moved that over. But I want the same needles, 80 to minus 80 from the back bed for this ribbing. Now because the handle's up, these needles are aligning. If the handle goes down, now they're not aligned together. The reason that we're doing it this way for the stitch pattern 1, which is 1x1 rib, is because the stitches on the front bed, the needles that will be in work, if I move these down for the ones that the electronic pushers have out of work, you can see that it's one up, one down, one up, one down. So the back needs to be the same way, but in the opposite direction. So I'm using my little orange tool, and I just moved down, so you can see now it's going to do a stitch here, stitch here, stitch here, stitch here. Now I don't have to worry about the needles rubbing together. Whenever the racking handle is in the up position, these needles will, if you try to knit both beds at the same time and both needles are up, you will either damage a needle, bend it, or you'll just have a big Passap mess. So now I'm going to do this throughout the back bed using my orange tool. And I always like to double check, take these out of work to make sure I have the right needles at the end. And I do. So I have the back needle set up. Now it tells me I need color number 1. The cap I'm making is in red. So I'm going to put the first color into work in my locks. I'm going to press enter again. It's now blinking stitch size. For this particular pattern, I like to start with a size of 1. So my stitch sizes on both beds now I've placed at 1. Now it wants me to put in orange strippers. It's blinking strip with an O. If it wanted black pushers, it would have said strip with a B. So now the machine is blinking SX, which means for me to put the front bed on SX. Press enter. It says the back bed with GX. Put it into GX. Press enter. And run. It says to write empty or empty.